Time for our final question in today's show. It comes from David in Conway. I feel like I've done a decent job saving for retirement, so I'm debating whether to start Social Security at 62 or wait until 67 or even 70. How do I decide the best time to claim based on my personal situation? David, thanks very much. Well, we would ask, first of all, when are you actually retiring? We don't hear that, right? You're trying to decide when you're going to claim Social Security, but the first piece to that is when are you going to actually retire? Because if you still plan to work past the date you start claiming Social Security, you could get into trouble. And I say that because you won't want to likely claim Social Security and work until you are 67, if that's your full retirement age, which we're assuming that it is here, because you can only make a certain amount of annual income before you are, they don't call it a penalty, Teresa, but it is a penalty.
But every dollar, every $2 you make over that dollar amount, you have to return $1 back to them. So it gets really messy on your tax return if you do make too much. So, if you're planning on having a side hustle where you only make it a little bit, you might be able to. But if you're not planning to step away from full-time employment, taking that benefit before you hit full retirement age is going to be very challenging.
Yeah, and we've had this come up a few times recently in the client meeting room. It came up in our workshop we did last week, so I want to kind of hit this too, because a good question that comes from this is, well, what if I'm not full retirement age and I retire in the middle of the year and start my Social Security benefit? I had income, right? So for instance, if you retired in June of 2025 and you made more than what I think is around $22,000 a year, that's the limit, right? And you're 63 years old and you decide to start taking your Social Security in June of 2025, you don't have to worry about making more than $22,000. It is from that point forward, they're going to actually divide that $22,000 monthly, so you can start claiming and really not worry about what you made prior to June, only have to worry about what you made from June forward. So that's a good question that has come up in our client meeting room. So if you do retire, generally we're going to probably say we want to turn on Social Security when you retire, because here's the deal, you're replacing your paycheck, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is not in all cases, but just think about the way this works. If you delay your Social Security benefit, it is going to get bigger. And if you live a long life, you're going to get more from Social Security than if you claimed early. But if you're going to develop a retirement income plan where, let's say, you're going to need $6,000 of income monthly, and your Social Security benefit is going to provide $2,000 of that, and you don't take it because you want it to grow to $3,000 later in life, then where's that $6,000 coming from? If you don't have a pension, it's coming from your investment. So it can put a little more added pressure, a little more stress on your assets to make sure that it lasts throughout your lifetime if you don't get some guaranteed income in there as soon as you can.
Yes, because you've got to think about if that was $72,000 a year coming out of your assets, that adds up pretty quickly.
Right.
And there are some situations we're going to talk about in a minute where you might want to delay. But if you are single especially, often it mathematically is going to make sense to take it a little bit sooner.
Yep.
But that's the key there. We've got to do the math. You talked earlier about making decisions in a vacuum, and this is another one of those areas that I feel like people tend to lean towards making that decision in a vacuum. So we want to really encourage you to think through not just this one decision, but how it fits in the overall picture of your financial journey. One of the things to consider is your health. Are you someone who has a family that has longevity and you're likely to be here well into your 90s? That affects when you need to take Social Security. Or if you have health challenges and you're concerned that maybe you need to retire early to enjoy some time while you can, that's something to consider. But it's not just this one decision. It's part of a bigger picture.
Yeah, and if you do have a pension, I think that plays into it as well, because you'll have some guaranteed income. We call it the income floor, right? Money that you are going to get no matter what happens to your investments or what happens in the stock market, not dependent upon performance to get that check. So that's a piece of it too, or even rental income from a home. That's not necessarily guaranteed, but it's closer. And we can definitely incorporate that. If you have some of those sources that you're going to have, maybe you can put off Social Security till a later date. And then another piece to consider too, and Teresa, you mentioned it, as far as if you're married, oftentimes if we do need to get some floor income for a couple, and it doesn't sound like maybe David is married, but for other people listening and watching, we oftentimes will get one of those Social Security benefits turned on, but let the other one grow. Mm-hmm. And the main thought behind that is because when one spouse passes away, one check is going away.
Yes, and I don't know that people all know this. Many probably do, but the larger check stays, the smaller check goes. So if you're the spouse who has the larger income, it may make sense, if we can make it work with your plan, to delay your benefit to maximize the spousal benefit long term when one of you is no longer here.
And I think some of the questions that we've received recently through workshops and also through the radio show has really reiterated the point that oftentimes people do keep these two decisions siloed. When you think about how much am I going to withdraw? Last week in the show, we had a question about what's a safe withdrawal rate from my assets. And the question came with no regard to what my Social Security was going to be, right? Yeah. And this question is about when should I claim Social Security without knowing how much you do have in your retirement savings. You tell us that you've done a decent job saving for retirement, but what does that look like? What's the account value? What does the plan look like? How much can those assets provide you on a monthly income? Incorporating that and layering Social Security with the withdrawals you're going to take from your retirement accounts really puts the whole thing in focus.
And I think we've talked about a few different aspects of retirement planning that maybe a lot of people don't realize exist. So for my final thought, I would love to talk about the fact that it has to be included. When you're looking at your financial independence, not just retirement, but your financial independence, there are so many pieces that need to be considered all together to really make that orchestra play well. And if you don't have somebody talking to you about these other pieces of the puzzle, I'd really encourage you to find somebody that is going to look out for all of these, because I can make a great investment strategy, but if you have a long-term care event and I haven't planned ahead, I've set you up for failure without even meaning to.